For over a year, fans were stunned. One of Hollywood's most adored couples, Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa, fell apart without warning. Whispers of betrayal, explosive fights, and buried secrets clouded what once looked like the perfect family. While both Lisa and Jason remained tight-lipped, the rumors only grew louder. But now, in a move no one expected, Zoe Kravitz is breaking her silence. "I'm tired of the lies." With these 5 words, Zoe shatters the illusion. And everything we thought we knew about her mother's divorce. What she revealed didn't just silence the gossip. It flipped the entire story upside down. Because according to Zoe, it's finally time the world heard the truth. Zoe Kravitz's fairy tale and the cracks that followed. Before the divorce, Zoe Kravitz wasn't just part of a modern Hollywood family. She was at the heart of what fans saw as a real-life fairy tale. Her mother, Lisa Bonet, had long been a symbol of bohemian grace and quiet strength. After her split from Lenny Kravitz in the early 90s, she built a peaceful, grounded life, one Zoe was raised in. And then came Jason Momoa. From the moment Jason met Lisa in 2005, everything changed. He was loud, playful, and unapologetically in love with her, even telling the world she was his childhood crush. And as his relationship with Lisa blossomed, so did his bond with Zoe. Jason embraced Zoe like his own. He called her Zozo Bear. She called him Papa Bear. Their connection felt genuine, full of shared tattoos, goofy selfies, and red carpet laughs. He wasn't just Lisa's partner. He was family. By the time Lisa and Jason married in 2017, fans were obsessed with their blended household. Lisa, Jason, Zoe, and the 2 younger kids, Lola and Nakoa Wolf. On the surface, it was picture perfect. But as Zoe now reveals, the cracks had been there all along. Behind the scenes, the harmony was slipping, and for Zoe, the shift was personal. What started as a family dream began to feel like something else entirely, something that didn't match the Instagram posts or public praise. What she saw, and what she stayed silent about for years, is exactly what she's speaking up about now. Signs of cracks. What really went wrong behind the scenes? To the outside world, Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa had a love story written for the screen, bold, romantic, and untouchable. But off-camera, the realities of fame, constant travel, and clashing lifestyles were quietly pulling them apart. The turning point was unmistakable. Jason Momoa's career exploded after his role as Aquaman in 2018. Practically overnight, he went from cult favorite to global superstar. With blockbuster offers pouring in, international filming schedules, press tours, and commitments stacking up, Jason found himself away from home more often than ever before. And for Lisa Bonet, a woman who had tried to stay out of the Hollywood spotlight as much as possible, that shift wasn't just uncomfortable, it was alienating. While Jason thrived in the limelight, traveling for months on end, rubbing shoulders with Hollywood elites, and becoming a fixture at glamorous events, Lisa was left holding down their peaceful, grounded life in Los Angeles. Friends of the couple would later reveal that Lisa never enjoyed the red carpet circus or industry politics. She loved privacy, nature, spirituality, things far removed from the noise of Jason's newfound global fame. Zoe Kravitz herself subtly hinted at this growing disconnect in past interviews, speaking of how her mother valued quiet and simplicity over the fame-driven lifestyle. And while Jason adored Lisa, the demands of his skyrocketing career created an unavoidable distance between them, both physically and emotionally. What made things harder was the way the couple operated. Lisa was intensely private, preferring to deal with emotional struggles behind closed doors. Jason, on the other hand, wore his heart on his sleeve, but often escaped into work rather than confrontation. By 2021, insiders close to the family noticed they were living increasingly separate lives. Jason would spend long stretches filming in foreign locations, while Lisa stayed rooted in California, often seen without her wedding ring. The world remained blissfully unaware, thanks to their carefully curated public appearances. But for those paying attention, the unmistakable clues were there. Lisa's cryptic social media posts became more frequent, subtle, almost poetic reflections about release, detachment, and growth. In one post, she wrote about the importance of letting go of people who no longer align with your path. a sentence fans would later look back on with painful clarity. Perhaps the most telling sign of all was the energy around their rare public appearances together in their final year as a couple. Body language experts even noted the increasing physical distance between them at events, in stark contrast to their earlier years of warmth and closeness. And then, in early 2022, the world finally got its answer. Or so they thought. Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa announced their shocking split, leaving fans heartbroken. But, while the rest of the world assumed they knew everything, Zoe Kravitz had only just started talking, and what she was about to say would flip the narrative, for good. The divorce bombshell, and the silence that spoke volumes. When Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa jointly announced their separation in January 2022, the world was blindsided. After 16 years together, and just 5 years of marriage, the seemingly unbreakable couple was calling it quits. But what truly caught everyone's attention wasn't just the divorce itself, it was how they announced it. In a deeply spiritual and poetic joint statement shared on Jason's Instagram, they wrote, "We share this not because we think it's newsworthy, but so that as we go about our lives we may do so with dignity and honesty. The love between us carries on, evolving in ways it wishes to be known and lived. We free each other to be who we are learning to become." For a generation of fans who had idolized their love story, this announcement hit like a thunderclap. Social media exploded with heartbreak, confusion, and theories. One phrase stuck in everyone's mind: "We free each other." What did it mean? Who wanted freedom? And freedom from what? Almost instantly, the internet filled in the blanks. The rumor mill exploded. Some tabloids began circulating wild claims that Jason had been unfaithful during his long filming stints away from home. Others speculated that Lisa Bonet had grown tired of Jason's increasingly wild lifestyle, accusing him of partying too hard and neglecting family responsibilities. But it didn't stop there. Dark, shocking rumors began swirling that there had been violence in the marriage, with claims that either Jason or Lisa had been abusive. Online trolls and tabloid headlines ran wild, crafting narratives with zero evidence. Some even floated the bizarre idea that Lisa Bonet was difficult or controlling, painting her spiritual, introverted lifestyle as cold or distant, while others accused Jason of having a temper. Adding to the confusion was the pair's continued closeness post-announcement. Despite confirming their separation, Jason was seen attending family events, supporting Zoe Kravitz at her The Batman premiere, and spending time with Lisa and the kids. In fact, shortly after the split, Jason was famously seen living in his customized vintage RV, not because he was destitute, but because he genuinely loved the freedom of it. Still, the sight of a global superstar living in a van near friends' properties fueled headlines that suggested he had been kicked out or left with nothing. To complicate matters further, fans refused to believe the couple was truly over. Constant reports emerged claiming Lisa and Jason were reconciling, that they were spotted together, or that they might remarry. Every photo of them interacting, whether co-parenting or simply being cordial, was twisted into false hope for a reunion. But amid the chaos, there was one voice notably missing: Zoe Kravitz. The daughter caught in the middle, silent as wild accusations flew against both her mother and stepfather. But that silence wasn't indifference. It was protection, pain, processing. Because behind the headlines, Zoe had been watching her family unravel in real time. And she was caught in the middle, the stepdaughter to Jason, the daughter to Lisa. Someone who once believed their love was the kind of magic you don't see in Hollywood anymore. Until it wasn't. And then, just when fans had stopped expecting answers, Zoe broke her silence. "I'm tired of the lies," she said. 5 words. That's all it took to shift the entire narrative. Because what Zoe revealed next didn't just shut down the gossip. It finally explained what tore this once golden couple apart, and it wasn't what the world expected. Caught in the middle, Zoe's private battle, watching it all fall apart. For Zoe Kravitz, watching her mother Lisa Bonet and stepfather Jason Momoa go from soulmates to strangers was more than just a family crisis. It was personal heartbreak on every level. The world saw them as Hollywood royalty, but for Zoe, they were simply mom and papa, the only family dynamic she had truly known. Unlike many stepchild-step-parent relationships that are distant or strained, Zoe's connection with Jason Momoa was famously close. In several interviews, he proudly called her "my daughter," despite not being her biological father. Their connection wasn't just real, it was deep. And when Lisa and Jason's marriage began falling apart, Zoe was caught in an emotional crossfire, struggling to protect both her mother and stepfather from the wave of rumors. Behind the scenes, she was dealing with far more than the public ever saw. Sources close to Zoe later revealed that the divorce hit her harder than many realized. For years, Zoe had been her mother's emotional anchor, especially during Jason's long absences. Lisa often leaned on Zoe for support when Jason's booming Hollywood career kept him away for months. Yet despite being her mother's closest confidant, Zoe's love for Jason never wavered. She openly credited him for being a major part of her life, attending important milestones like her wedding to Carl Glusman in 2019, celebrating birthdays together, and sharing deep family traditions. But things changed rapidly once the divorce news became public. Insiders said Zoe increasingly found herself playing mediator, trying to maintain peace between Lisa and Jason while preserving her own emotional well-being. She was torn, not wanting to take sides, yet feeling responsible for keeping family harmony intact. Even publicly, Zoe's body language changed. At events where Jason showed up to support her, like the Batman premiere in 2022, fans noticed a more reserved energy from Zoe. While Jason proudly cheered her on, Zoe seemed more cautious, perhaps battling mixed emotions about their evolving family dynamic. What made things even harder was knowing that this wasn't just a private family matter anymore. The world was watching. Every appearance, every word, and every social media post was dissected for clues about whose side Zoe was on. But those close to Zoe knew the truth. She wasn't choosing sides. She was quietly grieving the loss of her family structure. It wasn't about fame or headlines for her. It was about seeing two people she loved lose their ability to make it work. And in her silence, rumors only got louder. Until Zoe finally said what no one else would. "I'm tired of the lies." With those 5 words, she did what neither Lisa nor Jason had done since the split: acknowledge the emotional weight of the truth. Because for Zoe, this wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about the toll it took on everyone involved, and why it hurt her more than anyone realized. How the divorce shaped Zoe's own life, relationships, and identity. While Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa's divorce dominated headlines, few people paused to consider the ripple effect it had on Zoe Kravitz's own life. For Zoe, the experience wasn't just emotionally draining. It quietly began reshaping her views on love, trust, and relationships in profound ways. One of the most striking reflections of this impact was Zoe's own short-lived marriage to actor Carl Glusman. The two had started dating in 2016, and their intimate 2019 wedding, held at her father Lenny Kravitz's Paris home, had all the markings of a fairy tale ending. Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet were both in attendance, smiling alongside their blended family, with Jason publicly expressing pride in Zoe's happiness. But less than 2 years later, Zoe filed for divorce in late 2020, long before her parents' own split would make news. While she never directly blamed her family dynamics for her failed marriage, those close to Zoe hinted that witnessing her parents' relationship struggles had deeply affected her perception of commitment. Friends of Zoe have often described her as fiercely independent, someone who values emotional authenticity over surface-level appearances. But after her own divorce and watching her mother's heartbreak play out so publicly, Zoe reportedly became more guarded, wary of opening herself up fully in relationships. Adding to her inner struggle was the growing pressure from the public. As Jason and Lisa's divorce made headlines, Zoe found herself indirectly targeted by critics and trolls online. Some accused her of being too Hollywood like her father Lenny, while others unfairly blamed her for not speaking up sooner about her parents' struggles. It was a bizarre and deeply unfair situation, being judged not for her own actions, but for her family's very human pain. Even worse, some online narratives began twisting Zoe's own divorce as proof that love doesn't last in her family. A comparison that clearly stung. For someone already navigating the wounds of her failed marriage, having strangers weaponize her parents' split against her added an extra layer of frustration. Zoe later admitted in interviews that living in the public eye makes personal heartbreak even harder. She spoke about the exhaustion of constantly being analyzed, judged, or compared to her famous parents, both of whom had larger-than-life love stories that didn't end the way people expected. Her friendships, too, were affected. According to reports, Zoe became increasingly selective about who she let into her inner circle after the divorce scandals erupted. Zoe also came to understand that people would always project their own fantasies or disappointments onto her life, but she no longer owed them her silence or her suffering. And so, after months of quietly enduring the noise, the lies, and the false narratives surrounding her family, Zoe Kravitz reached a breaking point. The time had come to speak, not just for herself, but to set the record straight once and for all. What she was about to reveal would leave the world completely stunned. Enough is enough. Why Zoe Kravitz finally broke her silence. For months, Zoe Kravitz watched quietly as wild rumors and false stories about her family circulated across social media and tabloid headlines. The divorce of her mother, Lisa Bonet, and her stepfather, Jason Momoa, had become a public spectacle. But what deeply frustrated Zoe wasn't just the fact that people were talking, it was what they were saying. When Zoe finally agreed to sit down for a rare, deeply personal interview, she wasted no time getting straight to the point. As the cameras rolled and the interviewer asked why she had finally decided to speak out, Zoe's response was raw and honest. "I'm tired of the lies." That powerful statement set the tone for everything that followed. Zoe wasn't there for drama. She wasn't there to stir controversy. She was there to set the record straight once and for all, not for herself, but for her family. The first and most painful rumor she addressed was perhaps the most damaging of all: the baseless accusation that Jason Momoa had been abusive toward Lisa Bonet during their marriage. For Zoe, this was not only false but deeply offensive. "My dad, Jason, has never been abusive. Never." It's heartbreaking that people can create something so ugly out of a very human and painful situation, she said firmly. Then came the flip side, rumors that Lisa Bonet was somehow the aggressive or violent one in the relationship. Zoe wasted no time debunking that narrative as well. "My mother is not violent. She's one of the most peaceful people I know. She's grounded, spiritual, and calm. People took her privacy and independence and twisted it into something ugly." But perhaps the most frustrating rumor for Zoe was the never-ending speculation that Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa were secretly back together, or that reconciliation was inevitable. Every paparazzi photo of them in the same space, every co-parenting moment, was exaggerated into headlines about a romantic reunion. Zoe sighed at the mention of this rumor. They're not back together. They're not secretly dating. They're not trying to get back together. People need to stop creating a fantasy that doesn't exist, she said sharply. She explained that while both Lisa and Jason still had love and respect for one another, their relationship had shifted into something healthier for both of them. A respectful co-parenting partnership, not a romantic reunion. Zoe also addressed another subtle but damaging assumption, that she had chosen sides in the divorce. "People love to say I'm team mom or team dad like it's some kind of game. I'm not on a team. I love both of them. They both love me. I'm grateful for that." For Zoe, setting the record straight wasn't about defending one parent over the other. It was about protecting the truth, honoring her family, and reclaiming their story from the lies that had spiraled out of control. Her voice was calm but firm. This wasn't anger or bitterness speaking. It was clarity. It was exhaustion. And above all, it was love. For her mother, for Jason Momoa, and for the truth. But after shutting down the false narratives and clearing the air, Zoe knew the world was still left wondering. Then what really happened? Why did a love story that once seemed so perfect ultimately fall apart? And in her most vulnerable revelation yet, Zoe was ready to answer that question with honesty and heart. Zoe Kravitz reveals the real reason behind Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa's divorce. With the lies finally shut down and the rumors laid to rest, Zoe Kravitz turned to the question everyone had been waiting for. What really went wrong? Unlike the dramatic stories cooked up by the media, the truth Zoe shared was far more human and far more heartbreaking. Zoe admitted that her parents' love was very real. There wasn't a villain or a single breaking point. But in the end, What tore Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa apart wasn't betrayal, it was life itself. The truth is, they just drifted apart, Zoe said softly. She explained that the same passion and energy that once brought her mother and Jason together slowly became the very thing that pulled them in different directions. The biggest challenge? Jason Momoa's rising fame and career demands. This wasn't said with bitterness, but with an acceptance that comes from years of reflection. Zoe didn't blame Jason entirely. After all, being an actress herself, she understood how difficult it is to make it in Hollywood and how hard he had worked for his success. But she couldn't ignore the toll it took on Lisa Bonet. At some point, I couldn't even recognize her. She lost herself, Zoe revealed, her voice tinged with sadness. According to Zoe, her mother, who had always valued peace, simplicity, and privacy, found herself drowning in a world she never signed up for. The long periods of separation, Jason's demanding schedule, and the spotlight constantly following them took away the calm life Lisa had always protected. Zoe said Jason wasn't blind to this either. In fact, she admitted that he eventually realized what was happening and made efforts to fix things, to show up more, to be present, to slow down. But by then, the damage had already been done. He tried, Zoe acknowledged. I know he really tried, but sometimes it's too late. In a deeply personal confession, Zoe admitted that there was a time she felt anger towards her mother. I was angry with her, she said candidly. I felt like she should have fought more, held on longer, tried harder. But with time, distance, and maturity, Zoe began to understand her mother's pain, the quiet exhaustion of holding together a life that no longer feels right. Now I get it. I get both of them. Sometimes love just isn't enough, Zoe reflected. She made it clear that the divorce wasn't about hatred or betrayal. It was about growth, change. Two people moving in different directions who have the courage to let go of the past, no matter how wonderful it was. And despite everything, despite the heartbreak, the rumors, the public scrutiny, Zoe said she was grateful. They both showed up for me, for my siblings. They handled this with love. And that's all I could ever ask for, she concluded. Moving forward, love, respect, and a new chapter for everyone. Today, despite everything that happened, Zoe Kravitz says her family is in a good place, just different. Lisa Bonet has found peace living life on her own terms again, grounded, private, and surrounded by the people and energy that bring her calm. Jason Momoa, while no longer her husband, continues to be a present and loving father to their two children, Lola and Nakoa Wolf, and remains deeply connected to Zoe. Zoe herself still refers to Jason as family. Their bond didn't break with the divorce. In fact, Jason continues to proudly support Zoe's career, showing up at her events and calling her his daughter without hesitation. We're still family. That doesn't change, Zoe said firmly. She also appreciates both Lisa and Jason for prioritizing their children's emotional well-being over their personal differences. Co-parenting between them has been respectful, calm, and rooted in love. For Zoe, the divorce taught her a powerful lesson. Family isn't perfect, and that's okay. What matters most is showing up, being honest, and loving each other, even if love looks different now. We've all moved forward, Zoe concluded. But the love is still there. Always has been. Always will be. What do you think about Zoe's choice to finally speak up? Was it brave, overdue, or something else entirely? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.